And now that I have those official items out of the way, I'd like to hand over to our first speaker for today's session, Leigh Kennedy, the National Hydrogen Technology Cluster Manager for National Energy Resources Australia. Leigh's role at NERA was newly created this year and has coincided with the organisation's formation of a network of hydrogen technology clusters across Australia, which will provide seed funding in partnership with governments and industry to build the skills, capability and commercialisation opportunities in the emerging hydrogen industry. The National Hydrogen Cluster Network is the focus of Leigh's presentation today, and I know I'm really looking forward to hearing more about everything that has been happening since the network was launched earlier this year. So without any further ado, I can see we've got you on screen there, Leigh, so I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Laura, and it wouldn't be a presentation without sharing a screen, so bear with me while we get this moving, and thank you for the introduction. It really makes my life easy to get things progressing and into the fun stuff of the clusters. So I guess just quickly, NERA, and sorry, the theme is around connecting the dots, and that's essentially what clustering does. So, I'm looking forward to taking you through the next 15-20 minutes, highlighting what we're up to, give you some examples of what we're doing, and then more importantly, how can you get involved, and where more information is for you to take away and assess. So quickly, just on NERA, we're an independent, non-for-profit, government-funded organisation really focused on the energy and resources sector. Our vision is to be the leading source of technology, innovation and solutions in the energy and resources sector. And we have moved with the industry players, so looking at the decarbonisation, diversification, digitisation of the energy resources sector, and hydrogen obviously is one of those for many of the Australian players. Now, the key question is why hydrogen? And Laura gave a quick overview, and it really is as simple as a lot of our key trading partners and industries within Australia see hydrogen as its decarbonisation pathway. So it is that transition to a clean energy. And over the last couple of years, we have policy support, program support from all the jurisdictions around Australia, all have their own strategy. And we actually have some really great natural competitive advantages compared to our competing markets in other jurisdictions, but also Australia has unique, given our size and different climates. We have opportunities from Bell Bay in Tasmania that has fantastic hydro assets up to the Pilbara where you've got sunshine and Darwin and everything in between, wind in South Australia. So we do have a unique position in this space. And to really just touch on that and to extrapolate that further, it's not just the natural resources, but we have the actual skills, expertise, knowledge and innovation that has been developed not only in the hydrogen industry itself, but coming across from the oil and gas, the mining, traditional energy, renewables, digitisation, the industry 4.0 capabilities. So everything along that in that journey is all coming into that hydrogen space and getting themselves in that big melding pot and understanding how different partnerships can come together. And we're also leveraging off those investments that have happened previously, whether it be the export LNG infrastructure in Gladstone or the refining capacity down in Geelong. There's all these bits of infrastructure that other people have invested around Australia that can transition to the hydrogen economy. Now, the Australian government has made a target of H2 under 2, which is part of the low emissions technology statement. And the question we often get asked is how can this be achieved? Now, you'll hear from some speakers throughout the session, and you've got Patrick Hartley afterwards with some of the fantastic work CSIRO are doing on the R&D space and bringing technologies through. But where NERA's focus is around the cost reductions through the supply chain. And it's not just the big infrastructure like electrolyzers. That seems to be the one that catches everyone's attention because there is a lot of bang for buck to be made in reducing those costs. Just like what we've seen in the solar PV industry, also the lithium ion industry, that costs really do come down. So, sorry. So there are really great opportunities, and that's why we've really brought on to this clustering opportunity, because that's one way that Australia can get there. So a lot of people ask me, what's a cluster? So really, a cluster is a mindset. It's a business model on how people can operate in their local regions. Really, to be a cluster, you're looking at geographic concentrated area, like-minded individuals from around that region. So it's academia, SMEs, project developers, local councils, other people in that ecosystem that want to actually strive and build better solutions and focus on one industry. So we have clusters throughout Australia. HunterNet is a great example of a cluster that was built to really take forward some of the opportunities in the Hunter region. It's been going on for a couple of decades now. We have TSBE, the Toowoomba Surat Basin Enterprise. They're a clustering organisation, regional economic development organisation that uses clustering model to really bring their ecosystem together and try and strive to build new economic opportunities in their region. Now, the benefits of clustering, you can see there on the left, it's around increasing productivity, rapid innovation, new business. And this is really when you start putting like-minded people in the same room to solve problems that's happening in industry. Another question I get asked is the difference between a hub and a cluster. We've got state and territory governments looking to fund hubs, the Australian government looking to fund hubs now, and that's really around the physical infrastructure, the ports, the actual offtake, the pipelines, the production facilities, those things that actually use or create the molecules or move the molecules. I guess where a cluster is around the people, the cultural mesh that overlays in that region. Now, they go hand in hand because hopefully the cluster and the people inside these clusters are providing solutions to the hub to become more efficient. So it's really a very great alignment rather than competition. So what's NERA doing with our Hydrogen Technology Cluster Australia network? This timeline gives you an overview of what we're up to, and I just want to point out a couple of dates here. It was part of the National Hydrogen Strategy in November 2019 that NERA was asked to develop hydrogen industry clusters. Just before COVID struck in February, we undertook 11 workshops around Australia to hear what industry wanted, what were the types of solutions, what does it look like? And a really key piece of feedback through this process was around the feedback around, please do not build another Australian national body. If we want this to work, it has to go to the regions. Let the regions take advantage of what they have. They know their own region, they know the people, they know the opportunities. Let's provide the seed funding to the regions to grow organically. And I guess this is where NERA's point of view is, well, we've done that, and then we've put the national overlay, the coordination, and that's really NERA's role is to help the clusters grow, but also understand when the collaboration across the 15. So in Feb 2021, we announced our initial 13 clusters, and then it was great in May, just last month, being in Sydney and working with the Queensland government to announce a further 2. And none of this would be possible without collaborating with states and territory governments. We've got significant support from almost all states and territories now on either cash funding or in-kind support to really drive these networks. And you'll see there for next month, looking at launching Australia's first national hydrogen supply capability directory. And I'll touch on that a bit later. So here's the breakdown on the left of where our clusters are. And as you can see, it's not just a city. We're talking about regions, and we have some clusters like Darwin and Adelaide, where they are capturing the opportunities across the whole state. So it is giving those regions or those states a focus point to meet, engage, and understand how to be part of the industry, how to build that ecosystem, understand who their competitors are that could actually potentially be collaborators. So it's providing that really safe environment to have open discussions. Now you'll see the key themes and focus areas on the right. they're really the key issues that we've worked through since the 1st of Feb to understand what the 15 clusters actually want to do and focus on in the initial 6 to 12 months. You'll see across the top there are some consistent themes that all clusters want to do. And that's really the fun bit, because that's where an organisation like NERA can actually work with all 15 and build national consistent models and information portals and data sets that allows these companies and regions to tell their narrative and to be part of a national context. Where you're seeing we've got manufacturing applications, transport applications, agricultural applications, that's really on the use side of hydrogen. And so they're the real exciting opportunities around actually where are there opportunities around Australia, throughout the regions, to actually build the use case, build that demand market. And this is where the fun bit is things that are happening in the Mallee and Geelong and Gippsland in the ag space. But how can they actually collaborate with what's going on in Queensland, in Brisbane, in the Hunter? Like-minded regions that have very similar attributes and are traditionally seen as competitors. But inside this network, we're really trying to drive that collaboration. And a lot of, some of the issues we're seeing up front are, how do you work with the ports? Most of these clusters have a port inside them. We're finding that the ports are really significant enablers of the hydrogen industry. So how can you bring the port in? So what's happened in the Hunter and Newcastle? How can some of those lessons learned be shared with Gladstone, Gippsland, Geelong, Adelaide, Karratha? So each region is not having to learn the same lessons. And again, pulling and pushing opportunities throughout Australia. And you'll see, blue hydrogen is there. We are technology agnostic. So really whatever suits the region specifically, we're really happy to support. So really what we're looking to do now is build, collaborate and grow our cluster network. We're building our regional and local capabilities. So we've got 15 clusters. All these organisations are virtually starting from a standing start, and we've provided some seed funding. So how do we get best bang for buck through this first year and really accelerate their learning and some of the foundational clustering work so they can get that cooperation and those collaboration projects going? One thing from NERA is really important is driving the collaboration around Australia. And we've seen this through several projects. I'll touch on one next. And then again, since we've launched in February, I've been inundated, or NERA's been inundated from international collaborators, international equivalents of NERA, to understand how we can develop bilateral relationships. Where are the opportunities to collaborate with a Norway? Essentially, we're non-competing. They're in the north with the European market. We're in the south with the Asia Pacific market. We've got a company like Yara, a Norwegian company that's got one of the 3 NERA-funded projects here. They've got a real mandate to build their Australian operations. And the Norwegians are looking at ammonia. Australia's looking at ammonia. We've got carbon capture and storage opportunities. So how do we actually map out how to build these and collaborate internationally? Because we are a small nation and we do need to be really collaborative internationally, because the hydrogen industry will be global. So I want to touch on now just a project that we've launched. We're looking at mapping supplies across Australia. If you remember back to those themes, understanding capability and activating supply chain is really one of the key issues all 15 regions want to do. So we're looking at creating a single source database that all Australian companies who either are involved in the hydrogen industry right now or have the capability and want to diversify into the hydrogen industry can create their own profile on Economics. And what we're looking to do, and we've got about 75 companies who have registered a company profile already. And what we're looking to do next month is launch a national Australia supplier database portal. And essentially that will become a publicly available portal, and you can search Brisbane Hydrogen to find out the Brisbane companies there, or you can look at pipeline welding technology, and all the different pipeline welding technologies, companies across the value chain, from production, moving, storing, and also utilization across all the different utilization methods. So whether it be industrials, we're talking about mobility, agricultural, manufacturing, data centers, all those opportunities. We're looking to map the companies who see themselves being part of the future value chain. And some people ask me, why would you create another portal? I'm an SME, time's tough. You want me to set up another profile? Well, I guess the answer is there is no portal for Australian hydrogen yet. We've looked around the world and we don't see one. We don't see a independent portal out there at all. So we're looking to develop this. Hopefully this will be used by the Australian project developers that are looking for technologies, that are looking for capability around Australia. So whether it's a project in Karratha, or you've got the HESC $500 million pilot project in Gippsland, and everything in between, looking at opportunities to make their life easier, having this portal, but also your life easier. And one of the great things from us, I've already had interest from Middle East, Norway, France, Germany, Japan, Korea, of wanting to know when this database is launched, so it can be promoted to companies there. And there's really two reasons for that. One, investors who are looking to build projects in Australia actually want to see this capability here to help them not only build their project or design, build, operate, maintain, but they want to get that level of comfort that if they do invest here, there is a supply chain here that can help them with their strategy. Second reason, international companies are building projects around Australia. You look at Germany, and Schneider Electric is a sponsor of today. I'm sure they've got phenomenal amounts of work in Germany in their home market. They've got 9 billion euros to develop a hydrogen industry there. We're looking to promote Australia as more than just exporting molecules. We want to be able to export our equipment, our technology, our services, our smarts. So it's not just around molecules, but we're creating the next wave of export industry that, potentially are diversifying out of the mining, oil and gas, traditional power, like what I was discussing earlier. So this is really a portal that can promote those companies, and the international companies can either collaborate within Australia or hopefully pull them out and say, hey, let's go and I need your technology in Singapore. So there's multiple ways of using this data set, and it's really just one, or our first project we're doing as a network. So please, if you are interested, if you are in a company, please do visit myeconomics.com and do register a company profile. It's pretty simple to get on there. You tick in which, and it also allows you to tick into which cluster you'd like to be a part of, as well as the NERA national supplier data set. So please have a look. And for any project developers or tier ones out there, they're happy to discuss with you how you may use this and what you actually want to see in this database. I know we've got Cyro up next, but I never leave a presentation without sharing the High Resources portal. This is on the CSIRO website. It's a collaboration between several organisations in the hydrogen space, and really does highlight what Australian projects are publicly announced, but more importantly, gives everyone an understanding of states and territory, government policies, programs, support, and also gives some fantastic reference material to what's happening internationally. So again, if you are first time into the industry, you are looking for information, please make sure this is your on your list of to visit to understand what's going on. And my call to action is really, it is time to support and get involved. So if you are interested, please reach out to NERA. Happy to have a discussion with anyone. I'm on LinkedIn. It's on this Future Energy's website here. So please do reach out, and happy to have a discussion on how your company may fit in and what's next. So thank you very much, Laura. Happy to take questions.
Fantastic presentation, Leigh. Really appreciated that. Really excited to hear about the portal as well. Just keen to know a little bit more about how people access it. I assume, is it something that's publicly available? Is it something that people need to pay to access? How does it work? And as a follow-up, what else will we do to promote that to, as you mentioned, you've got international companies that are interested. What else will we be doing to promote that portal around the world and get other people around the world using it to access Australian businesses and technologies?
Yeah, great questions, Laura. So the first around how to access, it is free for all businesses to register their profile. So that's one of the reasons we went down this journey with this platform. We weren't looking for a user pays. The clusters and NERA essentially have funded this in the initial phases, and so we are really keen to get as many Australian companies on this to highlight around the world of the capabilities here that, we are known for major projects, whether it be in mining or oil and gas or renewables. But, we are more than just major projects. We do have really great technologies, really great minds, really great people here that can help build their projects, but also, go into third markets and further collaboration. So it is free. It is, simply going onto that my.economics website and creating a profile, and when you do promote your profile, you'll see the NERA logos. So please do register. In terms of promoting, we're in a very similar boat to where that high resources portal was when it got developed about a year ago. It's understanding, building up the information inside and having people use it and then share it. So we do have a promotional plan. When we do launch it, we've got a fantastic collaborators with Austrade, with their international network. We're hoping that many of the international companies already in Australia, whether it be Japanese, Korean, Germans, who are looking at some of these capabilities in Australia, but also taking back into their global value chains, may look at this. So yeah, we work really collaboratively with the Australian Hydrogen Council too. So working with Fiona and her group to really promote what we're doing at that clustering regional level.
Fantastic. Thanks, Leigh. Lots of questions coming through about the portal, so I will work through some of those. One of the first ones was just asking for the URL again. Could you just repeat that for us, Leigh? And we will share it in the chat for everyone as well. But just remind us what that URL is, please, Leigh.
Yeah, so it's my economics. So my.economics, economx.com.
Perfect.
And it will bring you up to a pretty blank screen saying, please register. That's where you just take advantage, log in, and then there's a supplier page there where you can click on the right supplier portal, which is the national cluster, as well as, if you do want to join the regional clusters, we listed the 15 there. There is an avenue for you to click into those two and join, and your information will be sent to them, and they'll be able to follow up with you and talk to you around your journey and how you wish to engage.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Leigh. Another question that we've had come through is just around, I guess, confirming the capability that people state for their own business. Is there a way that NERA or any other organisation is actually cross-referencing and cross-checking that stated capability that people are able to list?
Yeah, great question. And we're working through that. So we're working through a validation process, and we've got our 15 regional clusters that are part of that discussion. So if you're from Toowoomba, your company's from Toowoomba, there will be a discussion with the Toowoomba guys of, do you know this company? Do they say who they are? And it is a self-regulated portal. You put your profile up. If you say you've already got 3,500 people doing hydrogen in Australia, the credibility of your profile will diminish. So we all have a role to play in making sure that data is correct, up to speed, and validated, because these portals sometimes around the world are a dime a dozen, and if you do come up against some bad information, it does reflect or can reflect across the whole data set. So yeah, we're really keen at NERA to be able to ensure that data is up to date and capabilities are what they say they are.
Great, thanks, Leigh. Another one of our viewers has asked specifically what type of industry providers or businesses should register themselves on the portal. Do you sort of have a sort of quick general answer to that question?
Yeah, certainly do. So we're looking to promote hydrogen capability. So if your company provides skills and services that are either creating molecules, moving them, storing them, or using them, you're part of that value chain, or you have some cross-cutting um, skills or expertise. So, they're very, if you're involved really in the day-to-day of that molecule movement and production, it's pretty simple. But we are also looking at some of those advisory skills. Are there some boutique consultants out there or organizations that really do add value across the value chain? So we're really keen to hear as many as possible, and always happy to have a discussion with anyone on where they do sit and how to help them on their journey. We understand there's a lot, as you said, it's hit fever pitch. There's a lot of information out there, Laura. So happy to sit down with anyone and share information on how to help. And it can be confusing, especially if you work across different jurisdictions. There is a lot of information there. So really,
yeah, fantastic.
What we're not looking for though is hotel providers who are looking to sell their as an easy promotion. It's not really the spirit of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
But saying that, hotel providers might be really needed in some of these regional areas for their own regional clusters. So if you are a hotel provider, please have a chat and I can refer you off to the right person to speak to at that regional level, who you can then have a discussion with around what's going on.
Great, thanks, Leigh. Good to know. I think the takeaway there is that at this point in time, if you are involved, particularly if you're involved hands-on in this emerging hydrogen space, then NERA want to hear from you. So please do reach out. Now, look, I just remind everyone that please do submit questions if there is anything that you'd like to ask of Leigh, whether it's something to do with the portal or about something to do with his presentation more generally. We do have a little bit more time with Leigh. I do have quite a few more questions to go through as well. So I've covered a lot of the portal questions that we received thus far. I might move to some that are about the presentation more generally now. I have one here that says, we have a lot of remote coverage. How can Indigenous communities be involved and benefit from hydrogen in terms of project development and ownership?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ruby. We're looking at that right now. So in our Karratha cluster, we have one Indigenous corporation involved, and this has really been brought to our attention over the last couple of weeks, and I'm trying to catch up with a few different organisations in this space to kick off that discussion. We really do have an opportunity as an industry. It is coming, it's really a non-existent industry at the moment. It is emerging. So we do have the opportunity to start with a clean slate in the hydrogen industry, learn from other industries that have done some great things, others that we can learn of, maybe we step left instead of stepping right. So, we really do have an opportunity to really kickstart this. So it's definitely on our list of issues we need to address.
Fantastic. Yeah, as you say, exciting opportunities there and a really good one to raise, Ruby. So thank you for that. Next question I have is one from Nick, who's asking if there is a compelling business case to build large-scale solar farms to generate renewable hydrogen that could then be shipped globally using Cyro's ammonia storage technology. Might be one to ask Patrick next as well. But Leigh, your thoughts on this one? And as a follow-up, Nick's also asked, if we do go down that road, will this use Australia's natural comparative economic advantages to turn it into a renewable Saudi?
Yeah, great question. And I'll park the technical bits for Patrick to pitch next. But you're spot on, Nick, and that's exactly what we're looking at. How do you leverage our natural advantages with our Australian technologies to create new export markets and not only export the molecules that these technologies can use, but actually export the technologies as well. So Cyro's ammonia storage tech, they're partnering around the world, and Patrick can touch on that. And in terms of, being the renewable Saudi, I think there's lots of different terminology out there around Australia being the energy superpower, export superpower. There's lots of opportunities there, and one that we've really got to covet, because we do have fantastic trade relationships with some of our big energy partners. But as costs are dropping around the world in hydrogen, we do have our foot in the door with some of our really long-standing trade relationships, and we just have to really nurture them and work with them to understand what the commercial opportunities are, not only at that mega project, but at the technology too. You've got someone like Chiyoda, which has signed an MOU with Hazer Technology, a small startup in the hydrogen space, and is helping them, take their technology into Japan. So there's lots of opportunities to leverage those natural competitive advantages.
Absolutely. Thanks, Leigh. I've got another question here. This one's from Adrienne. She is wondering, I think is just looking for a little bit more detail on how NERA supports collaboration between industry and education providers to meet emerging skill needs.
Yeah, fantastic question, Adrienne. And it's really, that's probably our second collaborative project we're about to kick off. You'll remember from those themes, education, skills and training was really one of those issues that all our clusters wanted to address. And so we are looking at that and actually having a conversation this afternoon around at that regional level. How do we actually take some pragmatic steps around this and actually get moving? There's a lot of talk around it, but some things around just mapping some of the training providers, the TAFEs, who is actually in each of those regions that can deliver services and be part of that journey that's going to need to be. There's a lot of discussion of how much upskilling is required. Is there a lot? Are you creating a whole new workforce? Are you diversifying? Micro credentials and off you go. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But at that regional level, everyone, the 15 are looking to see, well, how do we start this journey?
It's a really interesting point. I think in the energy industry in general, not just in hydrogen, but we do have an industry in transition, and there's lots of training that's going to need to take place to move workers from particular areas of the industry to other areas. A question that's sort of somewhat related to that, Daniel's wanting to know, how important is forward-thinking leadership for maintaining the current pace of innovation?
It's critical, Daniel, and I think there's lots of ways to demonstrate leadership. It doesn't always need to be at a government level. We're looking at this regional level, and some of the regions are moving quite quickly. And I take Peter Morris's comment, HunterNet 30 years young in 2022. They're doing some phenomenal work in the Hunter to really take leadership in their region and bring people together and really drive some of those connections amongst industry, amongst academia, and really get that innovation, journey going in their, part of the world, or their part of Australia. And, the best thing about this cluster network is that when you take your blinkers off from Newcastle or the Hunter, you're into New South Wales, and then you're into the rest of Australia. And then we're looking at collaborating globally. So we are trying to develop that network up. It's just, how do you actually implement and keep that forward momentum? And we're seeing it from industry too. You've got the likes of a Twiggy Forrest, who's 260 gigawatts of green energy around the world, through to I'm sure Patrick's got some scientists in CSIRO that are having some world-leading technology innovation that are really driving global collaboration. So I guess there's everything in between who are demonstrating leadership in this space.
Fantastic. Thanks, Leigh. I've got a really interesting question here, which has come through from Hannah. She is involved in managing embedded networks and microgrids, and is wanting to know, how can we integrate and support hydrogen in embedded networks and microgrids?
Yeah, there's some real low-hanging fruit, I think, in the microgrids and off-grid power networks. whether they be in the mining industry, or industrial industries, or remote communities. And we've definitely got some of those organisations involved in our cluster network. So, especially in WA, where there's such a need and opportunity. And we've seen, through industry where some of those arena grants have gone to around that. So I totally agree. There are definitely opportunities, but it's a complicated one because they will depend on where you are in the world or in Australia, with what type of resource you will use, the costs as well. So there's a great report actually from CFC that was launched a couple of weeks ago, which looks at the different costs of all. I think they've used 15 different end users, and remote power is definitely one of those. So I recommend just jump onto CFC website and look at that, and it does give you a cost breakdown or forecasted costs of what it looks like and when it does start become economical. So there is that question between economics and leadership, and really wanting to drive that implementation, and who's willing to take that risk on going first.
Thanks, Leigh. And on that subject of CEFC, actually, we do have Rupert Maloney from CEFC who is joining us later today to talk a little bit more about the economics of hydrogen, and how we can best make that work. So, so do make sure you stick around today to listen to that presentation. I still have a couple of more questions that have come through, and we've got a little bit more time with Leigh, so we'll keep going through them. Just going back to the portal again, Leigh, there's a question here from Lewis who is asking, are there any formal technical, financial, or anything like that agreements among the members of the clusters? Sorry, the clusters rather than the portal. Are there any agreements in place between any of your members as yet?
Yeah, so there is. There's a whole range of different opportunities. So if you look, we've provided seed funding for 15 regional clusters to get moving. So really some of the issues they've had to grapple with in the last 5 months is setting up their governance structures, recruiting a cluster manager, and actually starting to build a long-term sustainable business model. So some things they are looking at is, how you do that and what are some of the financial agreements coming through. So in terms of actually being part of a cluster, there's everything from, if you join and, you pay the top membership fee, you actually get a seat on the board and you can drive the strategy, through to just being associate member. So that's actually within the cluster itself. Examples I've heard in South Australia, for example, we've had one technology company actually articulate that they've actually found a brand new customer through being involved in the South Australian cluster. They said it was very unlikely they would have found that potential customer for years. Having that one person or that one organisation in the middle who's trying to build that broader ecosystem around technology, SMEs, developers, ports, pipelines, governments, funding opportunities, advisory firms. Building that ecosystem has really enabled people to meet each other quicker, sort of cut through the chase and understand where there are opportunities to partner. Another great example is at APIA a couple of weeks ago, NERA ran the Hydrogen Tech Zone, the only stand at APIA that was hydrogen focused. And we had 10 SMEs on that stand who are highlighting there and talking to the industry about what they do. Quite interestingly, and it's great to see, but those SMEs didn't know each other. They're from all around Australia, and some of them have walked away going, well, I actually need to if I get you two together and come work with me on my project, we'll actually go further. So it's interesting to see some of the SMEs are partnering up too, understanding where they sit, what solution they provide. But if you partner with, the person in New South Wales, our product becomes a bigger product, more efficient, and is obviously a bit more palatable to a potential customer. So we're already seeing some examples here around technical agreements, commercial discussions that are kicking off. So just conscious too, we're 5 months in, everyone's still finding their feet, but there are examples of commercial opportunities being identified and worked through.
Yeah, fantastic. That's some great opportunities for only 5 months in. Yeah, I imagine you're incredibly pleased with that. And on a similar note, I'll just read this comment out from Alicia, just a note of appreciation to NERA for your great work, and a special thanks to H2Q, which is a NERA-backed cluster for Queensland. I have a question here from Alberto, who's keen to learn a little bit more about how NERA might potentially be able to work with Australian companies that are looking to export their technology overseas. He's mentioned that he's working on a number of different pilot projects. So how can NERA support initiatives where hydrogen and green ammonia projects are developed by Australian-based companies in overseas markets? Is there an opportunity there?
Yeah, happy to talk. Probably not our area of speciality, and I'm happy to. So my previous role before coming to NERA was at Austrade and heading up their energy and resources investment attraction team there. And so maybe it's an introduction to the right people at Austrade to talk about what assistance Austrade can actually deliver for you, Alberto, and into your specific market, whether it's a regulation, standards, skills, or even just building your own networks in those regions. But always happy to talk about some of those specifics of what we can do, and even if it's helping you understand the Australian capability here that you could potentially take with you to your market. That's a really great opportunity for you to be that that Australian industry champion and really take and pull people with you to your projects. Now, does the cost stack up? That's another question, but I'd love to have a discussion with you, Alberto, around what are the opportunities for Australian, essentially HETS companies, hydrogen equipment technology and service companies, going abroad.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Great advice, Leigh. And we'll look to get you and Alberto connected after today's session. We're getting close to time, but I do have just one last question. So I would hate to leave one question behind. So I might just put this one to you, Leigh, quickly if we can. This one's from Kerry, who's mentioned the fact that as the industry grows, obviously the risk of an emergency incident also escalates. Do you know if any of the business models involve any emergency management plans, Leigh?
Yeah, so in terms of specifics on companies and their specific plans, I don't have visibility of those. What I can say is it's really at the forefront of states and territories, regulators, to understand around providing a really safe environment. There was, and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with the Australian representative of GEXCON. So GEXCON was the company that helped eliminate or helped work with Nell, who had a fire at, I think, a Swedish refueling station. So they're a German company looking at modeling of, 3D modeling of technologies and understanding what, different configurations of hydrogen projects, if something does go wrong, what does it look like? So it's all this, I guess, Industry 4.0 expertise to make sure things are implemented as best as possible. So I know the South Australians, they had, I think, the South Australian government had someone on the global HiSafe board really looking at these safety issues. And I know there has been some funding put aside for Australian emergency services to train internationally or to work internationally. So it is a major issue. And I think that's also a positive from the industries that are coming into the hydrogen. It's a mix of oil and gas, electricity, renewables, traditional power, mining. There's a lot of world's best practice that's coming in to this industry at the production stage, and you're looking at the people who are moving, storing and using, again, global companies that are looking to bring standards in, share, grow, and really make this safe, because if there was something catastrophic, it would really potentially put a dent in the social license for this industry to operate. So it is a significant issue. And maybe Patrick can touch on what's going on at CSIRO. I'm sure they're doing something in the safety space.
Fantastic. All right, Leigh, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciated the presentation. It's been fantastic to hear a little bit more about what NERA is doing, both with the clusters and the portal, because it is incredibly important work to the emergence of this exciting industry. So we really do appreciate your efforts and your time. And thank you for spending so much time answering questions as well, Leigh. There were obviously quite a few to get through, which obviously just shows how engaged the industry is in the work that you're doing. So once again, thank you for your time and thank you for your work. We really do appreciate it.
No worries, Laura. Thanks to the audience and happy to engage over the next couple of weeks.
Fantastic. Thanks,
Cheers.
Leigh.
Take care.